to Aaron, who's got a question about
characters.
Aaron, are you there?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
This sort of stems from, I've got this like vivid memory of me sneaking downstairs and my mum watching your episode of Bad Girls. And honestly, it terrified me. So my sort of question was sort of, how do you get into, like, do you have a process to get into a character like that? Because I can't imagine there's much back catalogue of green aliens you can sort of draw upon.
Well, you talk about their character, I get, about, you know, Russell, as I say, gave us an indication with the childlike looks that he had. You know, they were meant to be the scrap merchants of the sky. You got indications of what they would be, and then you take it off the page. You know, you kind of get the information from the page. And as I say, Russell was around. We rehearsed for a week, and Russell was around, so he would talk about them and that childlike quality is alongside their ruthlessness. And it's not quite like any other character you play, I guess, if you're a green alien that's enormous and tries to fit inside human beings. But Russell writes about us, about human beings. So there are always, I mean, certainly in Boomtown that he wrote for me just was fabulous, because she was alone, she was unhappy, she was, you know, she might, you know, she felt vindictive, but she was isolated. So there was an awful lot to pick up on. And then there was glorious stuff like, you know, dinner in bondage works for me. So he wrote an enormous amount, a lot of information in there about what your personality is about.
How do you generally approach, I mean, in general, how do you approach characters for the both of you, really? Eric, how would you approach a character if you were leading up towards a part?
Well, the most obvious approach, obviously, is you start with the text. You start with the words in front of you, and then what's going on round about those particular words, as in what are you reacting to, what are you becoming part of, and what is your particular take on what is going on round about you. And as Annette said with Russell, a lot of that is in the text before you open the page. There was that childlike quality, that mischief, certainly in the Siltheen, as well as the evil intent. There was always that, you know, nice little mischief and wonderful looks between us before any words were spoken. So you take all that and you think, okay, well, this is the level that we are going to be playing this bit at. But it looks like at this particular point in the page is when we turn on the sixpence and the jeopardy appears, the horror appears, and those non-Siltheens realise that they're dealing with quite dangerous, if odd-looking people.
The jeopardy's there, but the comedy's there as well. And there's a brilliant line about the character Oliver, actually, because you've discarded the sort of suit at that point. And there's a wonderful line. He's a busy boy, a wife, a mistress, and a young farmer. And it's just a classic line, and you'd expect it from Russell, but it's dropped in right in the middle of what's been quite a sort of semi-serious scene.
Yeah, this is exactly what we were saying about Russell. He does bring that lovely, what I call also that northern Coronation Street humour, that underlying humour, that very often, as in Coronation Street and a lot of the stuff that Russell's written, these one-liners that do come out of quite traumatic, potentially, situations, but just give it that little ping of energy and humour, and it's lovely, and it's all there on the script for you to deal with as you see fit.
And it gives you a breath, doesn't it? It gives you, as you say, it's an injection of something else, but it gives you breath for what you're going on to. You kind of you can expand
both us and the audience. Yeah.
Okay, with our next question coming in now from another of our audience, Connor. Connor, are you out there? And he's got a question for you, Annette, around Midsummer.
Okay.
It's me, actually. Well,
Hello.
Well, actually, I wrote 2 questions, but the one you're referring to is the one that my mum wrote. So I'll let you.
Oh,
We'll let
mum
let
wins.
Janet have this then, I think.
Hello,
I
Annette.
thought it was your sister.
I love Fleur in Midsummer. I think she's lovely. She comes across as a bit dark and prickly. Do you think Fleur will be a good serial killer?
Well, she'd be very able, wouldn't she, as a pathologist? She'd know all sorts of tricks. I haven't thought about that, but maybe I could turn her into one now. I could develop that. I don't know if she could be bothered. She kind of, it's all just too difficult. I'd rather be in my black Jag convertible going around picking up some handsome young man, really. But I might work on this. I might develop this idea. Leave small clues about the place. Keep the door open, the possibility of it. But well, she's very plausible if she is, isn't she? She's kind of you don't get any trace of it. So I'm fascinated that you've come up with it. She certainly takes no prisoners. She's very self-confident. And there might be the odd chap that she takes against, I guess, that might need exterminating, that she doesn't think is worthy of continuing.
You have a habit of some of the characters I think you played over the years in various roles have been particularly out there, and I can't let at least a chance to go without mentioning Babe Smith and the part you had in EastEnders. I'm just coming on to a bit of a soap thing because I've got to say I'm a massive soap fan, so I'm not letting either of you off the hook until I've at least had a couple of minutes on EastEnders and a couple of minutes on Coronation Street. But you know, Babe the character, what a complex piece of work.
Yeah, well, that's joyous, isn't it? Yeah, not loved. My main thing with Babe was I felt that she'd, in all her life, never been loved. And she wanted to be, and she tried to love other people. It always went slightly wrong, and then she was resentful and vindictive, vengeful. When I met Dominic Treadwell Collins, we talked about her being a good person and maybe being a pearly queen, and but very quickly I was unpleasant to Tim West in a scene, and I think they thought, oh, she can be nasty. And off we went. Babe suddenly kind of developed all these rather complex, but I like that it was complex. It's much better to have that, and yeah.
The layers are unpeeled over time, and I think that's the beauty of any good soap character, because you come in and you start off as one thing and you sort of end up as another. And you mentioned it yourself, Eric, you know, that northern humor, the Coronation Street side of it particularly. You know, you came in and the character that you're playing, Diggory, I mean, what a part. Just, it's there for the comedy, isn't it, to a degree?
Yes, I think that was really pretty much his sole purpose, certainly to begin with. And I think it was there to balance out Fred Elliott, you know, the Butcher-Baker battle, which then transpired. And I think that, yeah, that was really his role. And then, of course, as we got further into it, there were some slightly sadder undertones, although he was pretty sad to begin with himself, chasing after Audrey and all the rest of it. But yes, I think it is that Coronation Street humour, which I think has been there from episode 1, and it's not, in many ways, it's not even regarded as broad humour. It's just that northern approach to life, which comes across as resilience to some, but funny to others, and strength to some. And I think, I think Diggory was very much there for that role. I remember when they phoned me up and offered the part, and I was busy doing something else, and I said, "Can you send me all this over again later? I don't have time." It sounds very arrogant. Well, I was just busy, and I then phoned my wife and said, "Oh, got this role in Coronation Street. She said, "Oh, great! What is he? What's his name?" I couldn't actually remember what they told me. And I said, "I think it's something like Clibbery Mortimer." And of course, turned out to be different, which I think is the villager in the Cotswolds, isn't it? So yeah, it was our Diggory.
And I can't let it also go without saying you got the chance, Annette, to play opposite the wonderful Linda Henry. She's just a fantastic.
Oh, she's amazing. Yes, don't cross her mind.
I sort of get that impression on screen.
Keep in a good book, so you're in a lot of trouble.
I'm going to go to another question from our audience, and this one's coming in from Paul. And he's got a question actually for the both of you, so I'm going to let you fire away on it, Paul.
Thanks, Jason. I'm glad you came onto the stage because my question kind of follows on from that. Now, both of your characters pretty much left an impression in a lot of kids' minds. So my question firstly was, when you met children after your episode was screened, did they treat you any differently? Were they a little bit wary? Did they expect you to unzip your forehead at any moment? And just coming on from the conversation that we just had, from your work in soaps, did people treat you differently or as your characters in real life?
Shall I start, Derek? Or?
Yeah, so you.
Okay. I can scare little boys in supermarkets by just lifting my hand to my forehead. I was poorly one Christmas, and it must have been the year or two after we'd made it, and Doctor Who had been out, and this little family, I had a very bad cold and I was feeling all small, and I walked up one aisle and they walked down the other way and kind of went, oh, kind of spotted me, then into the next aisle. And they kind of made an engagement with my eyes. And eventually it ended up that the mother pinioned me to the frozen pea section with her trolley and said, "Would you speak to my boys, please?" And I did for a bit. And I did just do this as a joke. And they were so scared. They really, fled. They'd had enough then. They didn't know what was going to happen. And EastEnders was the first thing I did, which, being in a soap, is more like real life. As an actor, if you take a play or you take a teleseries or whatever, there's a graph. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you know where you're going. And some might be funny, and then you'll turn it, as we've been talking about the Siltheen and everything. But with a soap, you don't know where you're going. The writers come up with stuff, and I found that quite difficult because I'd say, well, my character wouldn't do this. And I just had to ultimately think, well, today I might do something I regret or has implications in my life in the future. And you just have to kind of go with that flow. But it was also the first thing that people didn't on the tube say, well, I don't know your name, but I like that telly you were in, or you're Annette Badland, aren't you? That thing you did the other night was terrible. Why were you in that? They called me Aunt Babe. They immediately, it was, "Babe, you all right, Babe? How are you doing today, Babe? What's Babe up to?" And that's very odd as an actor. It's that they thought I was Babe because I was in their living room every, 4 nights a week. And they didn't see Annette Badland. They saw Babe. They saw this other person. So that was extraordinary.
Eric,
that's my experience.
Very, very similar on both counts. Really, there's sort of several stories about Siltheen. Many of them have been at the wonderful Doctor Who conventions, of course, that Colin Baker got me in not long after the episode was there. But I remember going to a friend's wedding, and I was sitting at a table, and without name dropping, there were a few other people there, and I was sitting next to lovely Barbara Windsor and her husband Scott, sadly left us, was there at this wedding, and totally out of the blue, I hadn't clocked this at all. A mother came over with a boy who must have been about 8 or something, and came straight up to me, and she said, "Look, I'm really sorry, but for goodness sake, will you please unzip your forehead so that my son and eat his meal?" And I immediately, sussed out what it was. So I, like Annette, I unzipped my forehead and pulled the head back. And this boy went away quite happy. And I, picked up my soup spoon again to carry on with it. And Barbara Windsor turned to me and went, "Potty, what the hell have you just done?" She didn't have a clue about Doctor Who or Siltheen or anything. "What the hell have you just done?" So that was a high point. But yeah, and my mother used to get the Doctor Who character cards, the cards you got in W.H. Smith. All the kids in her neighbourhood in Kidderminster area, south of Birmingham, would leave them or put them through the door. And when we next went down to visit, I would have to sign them. And then she would hand them out. She was quite a celebrity in her locale. And more than I was, I think. And more than with the soap stuff, it matters. Like Annette said, it matters so much to people. You are part of their life, and they care deeply. And I remember when I was visiting my mother once, a quick story, we went out for an evening meal in a local pub, a group of us. And I think I went to the bar to get round a drinks in and was aware that this barmaid wasn't being particularly friendly. And all right, that's fair enough. And we ate, and I think I went and got some more drinks.
Okay, well, a bit of technical problem.
And she was particularly unhelpful and unfriendly. Sorry, have I said something or done something? Can you hear me?
You're just breaking up, Eric.
Up slightly, Eric, actually.
Story of my life. Sorry, am I back now?
Okay, you're back with us. We didn't quite catch the answer. Have you got a brief repeat for that for me?
Yes, did you get I talked to the barmaid and said, "Have I upset you or anything?" And she said, I realised that the previous evening, Diggory had a bit of a sort of breakdown on Coronation Street. And she said, "I was in tears for 2 hours last night because of you." And she like you said, she had taken me as Diggory, and had remembered that actually she had been upset, and this was her getting her revenge on poor old Diggory, who was just out for a nice evening with his family. But these characters, they do matter so much to so many people.
They do indeed. I've got time for one last audience question, and that honour goes to Daniel Hughes. So Daniel, do you want to come in and ask a question of our guests?
Hello.
No. Hello, Daniel.
There's a question for Annette. If Aunt Babe and Blonde Fox Pass Me a Day Siltheen met, who would win in a drink competition?
Babe.
No question.
if she didn't get killed, become the bodysuit for Blonde. That'd be quite a combo, the two of them together, wouldn't it?
and Eric, I'm just going to ask it, Fred Elliott or Diggory, who's going to win that drinking competition?
Oof. It'd be close. But I suppose based on the fact currently that poor old Fred died, and Diggory, as far as I know, is still sitting in the corner of the Rovers talking to Roy. It would probably be Diggory who would win.
I would say so as well.
Oh, have I gone again?
And time has just about defeated us. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you both this evening.